I'm Roy Lee Lindsay with the North Carolina Pork Council, and I want everyone to remember bacon makes everything better.
Miracles never cease, and in the month of March, you can always guarantee that something is going to blow your mind. And 5 days ago, NC State fans from coast to coast didn't think they were going to the NIT. They thought they were going to have a quick trip to our nation's capital, and then it would be on to perhaps even a coaching search. But stop the presses. I guess DJ Burns and everybody from Wolfpack Nation had another thing coming, because in 55 years on this planet, I have seen the Miracle on Ice in Lake Placid. I saw and experienced as a fan the cardiac pack of Jim Valvano in 1983. And right here in 2024, the NC State Wolfpack, 5 games in 5 days and 5 wins. They are the Atlantic Coast Conference champions in the 71st tournament of this great conference. And my partner, who has been at 37 of those conference tournaments, is joining us now from Washington, D.C. I'm Mike Waddell. He's David Glenn. This is the North Carolina Sports Network. And David, the 2 top teams in our state went head-to-head in the nation's capital, and I've never seen anything like what I've witnessed over the last 5 days. What's it been like for you to be there in the district and to experience NC State winning an ACC championship?
Well, Mike, you know I love the ACC tournament in the more general sense, but I also love it in many specific senses, meaning a great player who's easy to root for, like a DJ Burns, this year's tournament MVP, or even a school whose fan base has been waiting a long time, like the NC State fan base. The first tournament I covered was 1988, which means I missed by 1 year the most recent NC State men's basketball championship. So just as the Wolfpack Nation has been waiting for 37 years, and Coach Kevin Keatts mentioned that exact number several times in the aftermath of the Wolfpack cutting down the nets, I've been around to see Florida State win for the first time, Miami win for the first time, Notre Dame and Coach Mike Bray, who has all sorts of deep ACC roots, win for the first time as a relatively new ACC expansion member, of course. The Wolfpack's an original ACC member. And whereas those neighbors down the road, Duke, have 22 ACC titles, and those other neighbors down the road, Carolina, have 18 ACC titles, tonight's opponent for the Wolfpack, of course, that made it so much sweeter that not only was the Wolfpack ending a 37-year ACC title drought, they were doing it against the hated Tar Heels, who, oh, by the way, may get a number 1 seed to the NCAA tournament. But I want to frame this, while we get into all sorts of other things, I want to frame this in a way that maybe even some Wolfpack fans don't completely understand, because everybody's heard about the 37-year drought. You mentioned 5 wins in 5 days. That has happened a handful of times in all of Division I men's basketball. It has never happened until now in the Atlantic Coast Conference tournament. Even Virginia Tech a couple years ago, when they were a surprise ACC champion, for the Hokies, it was 4 wins in 4 days. So this is truly unprecedented territory in the 71-year history of the Atlantic Coast Conference. End of a 37-year drought. 5 wins in 5 days. Oh, by the way, the last 3 of those wins were against number 2 seed Duke, number 3 seed Virginia, and number 1 seed North Carolina. So it's not like it was bracket havoc and the Wolfpack took advantage of some kind of less difficult road. No, they went straight for the jugular through the 3 winningest teams in this league. And that adds kind of another layer to this cake. The lowest seed ever to win this event prior to this year was the Hokies 2 years ago as a number 7 seed. For almost 50 years prior to that, Mike, the 6th seed was the lowest to ever win the ACC tournament. Remember Wally Walker and the Virginia Cavaliers of Terry Holland way back in 1976. Also Jimmy V, and not that cardiac pack of 83, but a different type of cardiac pack in 1987. They won as a 6 seed. So for almost 50 years, the correct answer to the trivia question, who's the lowest seed ever to win the ACC tournament, was a 6 seed. 2 years ago, it became a 7 seed. Here, amidst all these layers of history for the Wolfpack, the answer is now a 10 seed. The NC State Wolfpack 10 seed that just pulled it off in front of all of our eyes, in front of a largely pro-Carolina audience here at Capital One Arena. 5 wins in 5 days. Oh, by the way, in 71 years, Mike, there are only 4 ACC teams that had a losing conference record during the regular season and yet won the conference championship. The Wolfpack was 9-11 in conference play. There's only 3 other examples of going from a losing ACC regular season record to cutting down the nets at the ACC tournament. One was Terry Holland, that famous 76 team. One was Jimmy V, that famous 1987 Wolfpack team. And one was Gary Williams in Maryland in 2004. So think about it. Kevin Keats just added his name to a list that includes, I would argue, 3 of the 10 most famous coaches in ACC history. Terry Holland, Jimmy V, and Gary Williams, right? They're somewhere on that list, and now Kevin Keats' name is on that list as well. Nobody should underestimate the incredible, amazing, mesmerizing, unpredictable, wild, fun, crazy nature of what we all just witnessed. It was incredible to watch. It was fun to watch the players celebrate. I was at the post game to see the downtrodden Carolina players and their coach Hubert Davis really struggle, especially in Coach Davis's case, with his emotions, because the Tar Heels, remember, have only won 1 ACC title since 2008. That's a pretty long drought by their standards. That one, of course, was not too long ago, but at this point now the Tar Heels have almost, not quite, but almost a decade-long ACC tournament title drought. The Wolfpack drought ends at 37 years, and that means it's not only the men's basketball drought that they can stop hearing about in Wolfpack Nation. The Lawson Insurance Group in Raleigh is a family-owned business led by 3 actual brothers who happen to be huge sports fans: Ken Lawson, Miller Lawson, and Michael Lawson. I know these guys, I trust these guys, and I send these guys my own insurance business and that of my family. The next time you have insurance needs, I hope you'll do the same. The Lawson Insurance Group is known for its commitment to community and its dedication to ensuring that North Carolinians and their businesses are prepared for life's inevitable challenges, with the reminder that as a high street insurance partner, Lawson Insurance Group offers local expertise and support that, combined with High Street's extensive national resources, means more choice and support for you as their client. To learn more, search Lawson Insurance Group online. The Lawson Insurance website will be the first link that pops up.
They always say that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And right from the get-go, in tonight's final between NC State and North Carolina, it was a heavyweight fight. And Carolina gets the opening tip. And then NC State just opens up, and they open up a big double-digit lead there in the opening 10 minutes of the game. Now, North Carolina would come back, but you really expected that NC State, the team that was playing those aforementioned 5 games in 5 days, was going to be, they were going to fade, and Carolina, with their depth and their talent, was going to pull away. But it just never happened. And really, the Achilles heel for North Carolina all season long was relying too much on the jump shot. And when that wasn't going, when it had to be Baycott and Davis putting everybody else on their back, no Cormac Ryan, no Harrison Ingram, no Trimble, no Cadeau, nobody really stepping up and helping out tonight, the big 2 for the Tar Heels. And that's because NC State just kept coming and coming and coming. It was relentless.
Yeah, you and I discussed, at least my 2 cents included, the one path to victory for NC State. as a team that probably, according to the metrics, had a 10 or 15% chance of beating the Tar Heels, and then they did it, was shooting well from three-point land and defending the three well against the Tar Heels. Both of those things happened. Those aren't the only two reasons the Wolfpack won. There was more than that. But State hit almost half of its three-point shots, 6 out of 14 from three-point land. That is going to take you a long way on the road to victory. The Tar Heels hit 8 out of 30 three-point shots. That percentage is not going to be very successful very often. But it really was more than that. The fact that the Wolfpack only took 14 three-point shots, I thought said something. The Tar Heels were trying to push them off the three-point line, but whether it was DJ Burns down low or DJ Horn off the bounce, as a defender would pressure him, he would just try to drive into the lane and get buckets that way. Casey Morcell did a little bit of the same. It was a team effort in every sense of that phrase for the Wolfpack. There were only 3 teams this year, Mike, prior to the Wolfpack in this title game who had shot 51% or better against the Tar Heels. And this was Hubert Davis's theme when the Tar Heels took the podium. He said, you got to play better defense than that if you expect to win. And he did credit NC State, but he talked about what the Tar Heels failed to do in his eyes. Tennessee shot really well against the Heels, but Carolina won that game because the Tar Heels scored 100 points against the Volunteers. The only other games where the Wolfpack or the Tar Heels gave up 51% shooting or better were UConn, Syracuse, and NC State tonight. All 3 of those games were Tar Heel losses, of course. So when Hubert Davis says for this year's Tar Heels, it starts with defense, it continues with defensive rebounding, and then he hopes for all the other parts of the game to come together. I don't think those are hollow words when Hubert Davis says them. He means them, and when the Tar Heels have followed that script, they typically have won. And when that script has wobbled a little bit, bad things can happen. And that's exactly what happened against the Wolfpack. But again, it starts with what the Wolfpack did right before we even get to what the Tar Heels didn't do enough of.
Everett Case, Norm Sloan, Jim Valvano, and Kevin Keats. Wow. I mean, you got to be kidding me. A week ago, they were ready to run Kevin right out of Raleigh. And now they might be putting a statue of him next to that big piece of bronze that they just unveiled with David Thompson back in the fall. I mean, for Kevin Keats, he has bested, Tony Bennett, national championship coach, Hubert Davis, who is the ACC Coach of the Year, John Shire, who is, everybody seems to think he's going to be the next great big thing, and obviously is doing a great job on the recruiting trail. But here's a guy in his 7th year at NC State, 10th year overall as a head coach, did some great things down at UNC Wilmington, but really hadn't done anything spectacular at NC State. And now he is cutting down the nets. And this team could, assuming they don't get too, excited about everything and they lose their focus, this is an NC State Wolfpack team that could truly do some damage in the NCAA tournament. You just never know. And I don't think anybody wants to count them out after what they've just witnessed in Washington, D.C. over the last 5 days.
The Wolfpack just beat one of the half dozen best teams in the country. That has to do a lot for your confidence. They also beat a Duke team that is going to be probably a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. They also beat a UVA team, which is not a vintage Tony Bennett team, but man, they know how to play defense. And the Wolfpack gutted that out, right? That Michael O'Connell shot that sent it to overtime is going to be one of those forever remembered shots. The Wolfpack was on the verge of elimination. Remember when Virginia Tech won two years ago at the ACC tournament? They needed a 3-pointer in the early rounds by Darius Maddox just to get past a low-seeded Clemson team. And then the Hokies, after surviving, played the heavyweights and beat the heavyweights. That's the way March Madness goes sometimes, whether it's the big bracket or here in the ACC tournament. You might need Michael O'Connell's 3 to push that game to overtime against UVA, remember, was a bank shot. He didn't call that bank shot. Isaac McNeely, a really good shooter for UVA, missed a free throw just prior to that. So sometimes the gods smile upon you. And the Wolfpack needed a missed free throw by a great UVA shooter and then a somewhat lucky banked three-pointer just to get to overtime. Now, again, they deserve credit for finishing that overtime and beating the Cavaliers. You got to take the magic when the basketball gods smile upon you, and then you got to do your part. And that's exactly what the Wolfpack did at UNC. It was DJ Burns, I know one of your favorite players, and really one of the country's favorite players. There's a whole lot of DJ Burns fans out there. Some love how he's a ballerina in the post, the big burly guy who just seems light on his feet. Others love him because of his big personality. I was just at the press conference before they literally threw us out of Capital One Arena because it's so late in the night, Mike, that there's another event in the same building next year. So they told the media you had to get out of the building. And after the confetti fell and the post-game press conferences, they basically shooed us out of there. That's why I'm not joining you today from Press Row the way I did the last 2 nights. But the DJ Burns story, getting the MVP, he adds his name to an insanely impressive list, right? Vinny Del Negro of the Wolfpack back in '87. Tommy Burleson won ACC tournament MVP, I think, twice in the early 70s. There are some Hall of Fame names on the ACC tournament MVP list. And now DJ Burns Jr. has added his name to that list. But DJ Horn was great, a guy who, remember, was injured a little while ago and didn't even play in the ACC tournament opener here in D.C., but was phenomenal when he did play, including against the Tar Heels with 29 points for DJ Horn. DJ Burns had 20 points, and he also had 7 assists. I mean, I call him a ballerina in the post. That's a wizard on the perimeter. Sometimes passing out of the post, of course, but he was incredibly difficult for UVA to guard, incredibly difficult for the Tar Heels to guard. The big guy from UVA, Jordan Minor, needed help. Armando Bacot needed help sometimes. The Tar Heels' game plan was to try to confuse DJ by only doubling him some of the time, so he couldn't predict. Some opponents will either double team you always or not at all. And Hubert Davis's philosophy was, we're going to try to just keep them off balance and double them sometimes, but not double them other times. He's a veteran player, obviously. This is a guy in his 5th year of college basketball. He's been around the block. He's been at 3 different schools. He's the former player of the year in his previous conference. And now he's the ACC tournament MVP, but he's an ACC champion because DJ Horn helped him. And Mohamed Diarra was a guy that I also put on my all-ACC tournament team. And Michael O'Connell was on my I put 4 Wolfpack players on my 10-man all-tournament team, and I think they all made it. Amidst the chaos leaving the arena, I didn't even see the entire team. I just saw that DJ was the most outstanding player, and deservedly so. Casey Marcel did his thing. Ben Middlebrooks did his banging in the post. Jaden Taylor, at times was a 3-and-D guy for them. They took a long time this season at NC State to settle on that 7-man rotation. When they did settle on that 7-man rotation, remember, they struggled for a while. This was not change the rotation and then magic happens. The Wolfpack lost 7 of their last 9 regular season games. And not many outside that locker room thought they had a snowball's chance in Hades to come to D.C. and win the ACC tournament. But they believed. They never gave up, even when things looked bleak against UVA and a couple of other times. And now they've been rewarded with an ACC title and a trip to the big bracket where maybe Kevin Keats can get another monkey off his back, because in year 7, he has 3 trips now to the NCAA tournament in 7 years, but he doesn't have an NCAA tournament victory yet. We'll see if that's next for the Wolfpack. Michael Berard, Managing Director Investments with the Founders Group at Stifel, works with a select group of high net worth individuals and institutions to develop and implement investment plans tailored to their specific objectives and risk tolerances. If you are interested in highly personalized, well-researched guidance and outstanding personal service, you can contact Michael at 984-364-2002. That's 984-364-2002. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
DJ Horn with 29 points. He came back home to Raleigh to play for the Wolfpack. He's played at 2 other schools, but thanks to this new era of college basketball, the Cary native has been able to come back home. And they always say that when you're choosing a college and you're an athlete, it's a 40-year decision, not a 4-year decision. This wasn't even a 4-year decision for this DJ. But I tell you one thing, I don't think that kid's going to be paying for anything for the rest of his life in the city of Oaks. I mean, this guy's going to eat free. He's going to drink free. He's going to be something else. And, he didn't get the MVP, but he was spectacular tonight. The other thing that really jumped off of the stat sheet for me, David Glenn, this was your 37th tournament. Have you ever seen a team win in the finals that only had 2 offensive rebounds in the championship game? That was an amazing stat.
Yeah. Probably not, but I'm glad you brought up that DJ Horn story because remember, in one sense, his dream had already come true, right? He had started at a mid-major school, had only, one scholarship offer going into his senior year of high school after growing up in Cary, North Carolina, right in the middle of ACC country. Then he transfers to play for Bobby Hurley at Arizona State for 2 years. Remember that great story that he shared with us on the David Glenn Show where his mom and dad got an RV and essentially lived near the Arizona State campus for an entire year just so they could see DJ play. Well, dream scenario, his 5th year of college basketball is, 10 minutes from the Horns' house? A lot easier to see DJ play during that 5th year senior campaign for the Wolfpack. Part of his dream came true because he became an all-conference player in the league he grew up watching. So no matter what happened here in D.C., part of his dream had come true. But he shared with us that the rest of his dream had not come true yet. He didn't want an all-ACC season on a team that fell short of the NIT, which was possible. As the Wolfpack traveled to D.C. this week, Kevin Keats shared some great stories about how they tried to visualize playing for the ACC title. He asked every player to bring a good luck charm of sorts to D.C., and he kept joking that he's not sure how many of the players actually took him up on his request. But one by one, most of the players said they did bring something meaningful to them that had been a lucky charm of sorts. But I think a lot of Wolfpack fans wanted to fire Kevin Keats. And DJ Horn's thinking, hey, I had a pretty good year personally. I made the All-ACC team, which is a tremendous honor. But I don't want my 5th year senior year in front of all these. Remember, he shared how hard it is to get 30-plus tickets to all of his home games at PNC Arena with all of his family and friends coming to see him play. That part's great. All ACC is great. But if the Wolfpack had lost, remember, this is another insane part of this ACC championship. The Wolfpack trailed Louisville at halftime on Tuesday in the ACC tournament opener. Louisville went 3-17 this year and just fired their coach. And the Wolfpack trailed that last place Louisville team after their first 20 minutes of basketball here at Capital One Arena in D.C. That same team this close to losing to Louisville, maybe seeing their coach fired, and DJ Horn's 5th year senior season, sort of a dream come true, but no NCAA tournament, maybe no NIT. That's only half a dream coming true. Now, more of the dream has come true under hard-to-believe circumstances. And in case I haven't mentioned it, Mike, it's the middle of the morning, so I'm not sure if I have. But for the record, I would estimate the crowd at Capital One Arena as more of a road environment than a home environment. So we've been adding these layers, right? The first 10 seed ever, the first 5 wins in 5 ever, the 4th losing record in the regular season in ACC play to win the title, and all of these other historical nuggets. I would estimate 2/3 of the crowd tonight was wearing Carolina blue. And of course, there were some neutral fans who were just not wearing the colors of either side. Maybe that was 10%. So if it was 2/3 Tar Heels and 10% neutral, that's only, do that math for me, 23 to 25% Wolfpack fans. Now that 23 to 25% was flying high, man, when that confetti started falling, and even in the minutes leading up to it, because it was pretty clear in the final couple minutes that the Wolfpack was going to pull off this magical run. And again, some of those fans weren't even old enough were not alive the last time the Wolfpack cut down the nets at an ACC tournament, 1987. So if you're, what's that math? 24 plus 13. So if you're if you're in your if you're in your late 30s or earlier, you either weren't alive or weren't old enough to remember the last time the Wolfpack won an ACC title. Now you start the clock over. Everybody's going to be able to remember 2024. And of course, maybe they have more memories coming in the NCAA tournament. In sports, we talk a lot about impact players who make a positive difference. When it comes to our state's economy, the North Carolina pork industry is a true MVP. Each year, the pork industry plays an important role in supporting rural communities across our state. It contributes more than $10 billion a year to the North Carolina economy and supports more than 44,000 jobs. Learn more about their positive impact at ncpork.org. The North Carolina Pork Council, the foundational partner of the North Carolina Sports Network.
Do you want the damage bill from Hillsborough Street from Saturday night?
No. I'm at an extremely nice hotel right now, so my expense report is scary enough without me footing the bill for Hillsborough Street damages.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch the big field of 68 announced tomorrow. You and I will be back here on the North Carolina Sports Network to talk about that. We want to thank all of our partners, especially our foundational partner here in year one of our operation, the North Carolina Pork Council, and their CEO, Roy Lee Lindsay. I was talking with him today. He was excited about the Wolfpack making it all the way to the finals. So hopefully we'll be doing some fun things with the Pork Council coming up to celebrate NC State's big win. And of course, David, just another exciting chapter written in the history books for the Atlantic Coast Conference in the 71st year. For the first time in 37 years, it is North Carolina State hoisting that big championship trophy. And maybe Kevin Keats will pull a Lefty Drizel and throw that on the front of his Cadillac and drive from Murphy to Manio and say, hey, man, I'm not calling Excel moving and storage now. I'm staying right here in Raleigh at NC State. David, have a good time tonight. Go enjoy a beverage or two up in the district, and we'll see you tomorrow here as we're back here on the North Carolina Sports Network talking about March Madness.
Thank you, Mike. Congratulations to Wolfpack Nation, really. Congratulations to Kevin Keats, DJ Burns, and all the guys who contributed to this amazing story. Truly one of the most sensational in 71 years of Atlantic Coast Conference history. And shout out to you for helping us create the North Carolina Sports Network. If we hadn't created this amazing new enterprise last summer, we wouldn't have been able to follow the way we did. One of the most sensational, remarkable ACC tournaments out of the 71 that have been played. And I love to remind our state audience, our statewide audience, and those who listen and watch beyond, remember that it's still Duke, Carolina, and NC State who have the most ACC titles, right? I mean, this is still a North Carolina-centric league. Both of the teams in the championship game from North Carolina. ACC headquarters, Charlotte, North Carolina, after Greensboro. Next 5 ACC tournaments, all in the state of North Carolina. So it's Duke with 22, it's Carolina with 18, and now it's NC State with 11. That is almost 3/4 of all ACC championships over 71 years. That is almost 3/4 of all ACC titles won by the 3 schools in the triangle. And oh, by the way, the school tied for 4th most is Wake Forest. So they don't have a Dixie Classic anymore. Some people still call it the Big Four. But if you're just listing most ACC titles, they're still the Big Four to you and me.